Welcome to Bucs Insider, presented by Ticketmaster. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith, and it is a great day, a great week. We are very happy here. We're 3-1. We're going into the bye week. We're leading the NFC South, and most importantly, we beat the Saints. What a day! What a week!
Does anything seriously during any given season feel better than driving away from that Superdome with a win?
No. No.
Anything.
Nothing.
Literally, I think that's the high.
That's up there with the Super Bowl.
It's close. It's close. I was assuming a non-Super Bowl.
Yeah, non-Super Bowl season. But yes, you're right. It is one of the highs of this team, this organization. The rivalry is
not
there.
Just beating the Saints, but leaving that place.
Yeah.
And knowing you don't have to go there for probably another year.
I do think that's one of your hottest takes is how much you dislike that stadium, and I understand it. I understand it.
I don't need to beat a dead horse. I've said it many times. I think people know.
I don't think anyone's ever upset with hearing more about that. But yes, again, 3-1, going in the bye week, leading the NFC South, beating the Saints. Mm-hmm. What does this mean to this team at this point? And especially when we know from outside there were all these voices, naysayers, saying that there were people predicting that the Bucs would only have 2 wins the entire year, and they've already got 3. So what do you think this means to this organization and team at this point, quarter of the way through?
You know what I think it is a little bit of establishing an identity on both sides of the ball, and that was something that coaches were openly talking about going into the season, that it might take a little while to figure out who we are as a team. And Todd Bowles said to that very question after the game, we're still figuring out. It might be a couple more weeks and a couple more games until we really know what this team is. But he did say, I feel like we're morphing into, he used the word morphing into a tough physical team that does the things it needs to do to win. Mm-hmm. And on offense, the play calling in that game by Dave Canales was pretty interesting, right? There was Chris Godwin threw a pass. Yeah. We had an end around, we had a shovel pass, we had a lot of variety of plays, even on one specific drive, just a really wide variety of plays. But then you get to the end of the game and you look at the stat sheet and you see 33 runs, 34 dropbacks. And they've hit that basic balance in all 3 of the wins. And I know that the number of runs is not necessarily correlating to wins. It doesn't predict wins. It sometimes is because you're winning that you run more often. But this team, even though the average per carry hasn't been great, is sticking to that run. It's a physical team. The offensive line is playing very physical up front, doing a great job of protecting the passer. And the defense is creating a lot of turnovers, which is what Todd Bowles always wants to do. It's very aggressive, a lot of blitzing, and it has a couple emerging playmakers that you can count on to make big plays when you need them to. And I think you're starting to see the identity of this team. And you walk away from that game 3-1, you just beat the Saints, your bitter division rivals. Do the Saints know who they are right now? I mean, I'm questioning which team is in a better position right now. Yeah,
that's a really great point. And when you talk about big-time playmakers, of course, typically that's going to immediately take you to Mike Evans. And a lot of times if you think you're losing Mike Evans in the first half, how many games are you predicting that the Bucs win, knowing how early you're losing him? So what did you see in terms of what it meant to have him out, and then how many people were able to step in, and what that said about the depth of this offense, where injuries happen throughout the course of the season. And to me, I walked away from that game feeling really good about, you know what, if anyone does go down for a quarter, a game, a few games, you have so many people there to step in.
Yeah, well, first of all, before I answer that question exactly, Mike Evans against Marshawn Lattimore, three catches for 40 yards plus a really big pass interference flag he got called when he beat him on a double move. That was a good day for Mike. I feel like if he had been able to play the second half, we'd be looking at this going, this is one of the better outings for Mike in that bitter rivalry with Marshawn Lattimore. But to your point, he didn't play the second half, and considering how he was the focal point of the passing attack through the first 3 games, you could be worried about that. But Chris Godwin had 8 catches for 114 yards and some just gigantic plays, like the 42-yarder that set up the last touchdown. And then, Devin Tompkins had his best day as a pro, at least in terms of catching the ball. And Trey Palmer, I feel like Trey Palmer, if you go all the way back through the preseason, it seems like he just makes one dazzling catch every game. I mean, he's never had a gigantic stat line. There's that amazing catch by Devin. He's never had an amazing stat line, but you remember his plays, because that play, according to Next Gen Stats, had a 22.8% chance of being completed.
Wow.
Of all the completions that Baker Mayfield had in that game, and there were 25 of them, that one was the least likely to be caught. but he made the play happen.
That's incredible. They underestimated Baker and Trey in that situation,
really
not understanding that they're going to make that happen. Also, shameless plug, we had Devin Tompkins on our radio show Monday that Ali Marpet and I are co-hosting this year, and it was phenomenal. Devin has such a great story, and it was very funny. He mentioned that he may not have run exactly the route he was supposed to on that play.
On the touchdown?
Yep, on the touchdown.
Wow.
That he said there was a chance that wasn't quite how it was supposed to go, but then
it became a scramble.
It became a scramble drill, and he said, I saw the open spot, I saw where he needed to be, and so never mind, we ran a little bit of the wrong route. We got to where we ended up needing to be to make the play, which I thought was really great. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if I'm doing this out of order, but we're going to talk about Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And his third down passing.
Yeah.
That play was on third down.
He is really. I have loved watching his ability to make things happen, extend plays, particularly on third down, of evading sacks, scrambling. I mean, I think he ended up having 31 yards rushing when nothing is really a designed rushing play for him. That he was able to, extend a lot of plays, make a lot of plays, and definitely showed a lot of awareness, especially stretching the ball for a couple first downs. I've been really impressed with him.
Well, you make a great point on his running, and that included those 31 rushing yards included 3 -1 kneel downs at the end of the game. So he actually was more like 5 for 34. And they were big runs, all of them. And he's been doing that kind of sneakily in the first 4 games. But in addition to that, he's the best third down passer in the NFL right now.
Wow.
He actually had that going into this game. He had something like 119 passer rating, led the league in third down passing. And in this game, he was 6 of 7 for 80 yards, 2 touchdowns, and okay, we're talking about third downs overall. 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, and pass rating of like 153. He's just making it happen on third down, and that's why the Buccaneers, if we talk about some of the things the Bucs offense has done well and not done well, and the things we're going to be talking about during the bye week, things are going to be, Dave Canales and his staff are going to be going through the tape and seeing what the Bucs have done well. They're going to like what they see on third down, and it's not just short, medium, or long.
You can see it's a lot of them.
And the last 2 categories are kind of overlapping because 10+ yards is part of the 7+ yards. But either way, the Buccaneers are top 12 in every form of third down passing. They had been a little bit shaky in that 4 to 6 range, but they went 4 for 4 in New Orleans to get that up a little bit. So that's one thing you got to like, and I think that goes back to the structure of the offense and how they're calling the plays and getting a lot of third and manageables.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I know that if we want to stay here on the kind of the offensive side of things, Tristan Wirfs, I just feel like we've talked so much about that transition, and we knew what a good right tackle he was going to be. And is he going to be as good at left tackle? And you're kind of afraid to mess with a good thing, even though all of us, I'm sure, had complete confidence in Tristan. And now everyone has seen we were right to have that kind of confidence in him.
I'm not sure if we can come up with something that Tristan doesn't do well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He, he could probably play tight end if he needed to.
Quarterback, running back.
According to PFF, he's pretty much the best pass blocking left tackle, or is it?
It's just tackles even, I think. Yeah, right.
He's allowed, 2 pressures all year?
Incredible.
And he's faced some pretty good pass rushers,
too.
So, I think a lot of us were very confident that Tristan would handle it fine. And it goes back to the thing we learned in training camp, that even a player as unbelievably great as a player who's been great since day one that he walked into the NFL, he had some concerns, right? He was a little, am I going to be able to do this?
Yeah.
And you don't think about those guys actually having doubts, self-doubts.
Just think of them as these superheroes out there.
And so he had a little bit of that when he was switching to left tackle, he told us. He's like, this is very important. Am I going to be able to handle it? And, well.
Yep, the answer is yes.
The rest of us had no doubts, Tristan. And he's,
Yeah, I'm hopeful that after 4 games, he's feeling pretty good about it as well. And then another kind of weapon of the offense, Chase McLaughlin. This guy, man, I have to imagine that it's so nice for Coach Bowles to have so many more options.
Perfect.
At this point of like, man, I know that even if we only get to here, we got a guy now that we've extended our part of the field that we can get points from.
It's the exact perfect point.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Chase McLaughlin has meant to this team. Because if you look at, he's 2 for 2 this year in kicks of over 50 yards. And if you look at both situations, they were they were 1-score games in the fourth quarter where if he doesn't make it, you're giving them the ball near midfield and making them a short field to potentially tie or go ahead. And so you have to be confident going into that kick that he's going to make it, or you don't risk that.
Yeah.
You punt it away. We would have punted. Ryan Suckup was a Super Bowl champion, was a great kicker for us, but we would have punted in those situations with a kicker of his distance at that time in his career. And as that graphic was just showing, since Chase came into the league in 2019, he's the second best kicker in the league in terms of his percentage of making kicks from 50 and beyond. 19 of 23.
It's incredible.
That doesn't even seem logical.
That's a decent percentage from shorter ones.
100%. You take that for your entire
Yeah.
body of work for a season, and that's his career from beyond 50. So that's exactly why the Buccaneers signed this particular kicker in the offseason, and they're getting what they paid for.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then so let's talk a little bit about the defense, because, man, they also had an incredible performance against the Saints. I feel like there have been times in this history where the Saints have been able to rack up some yards, some touchdowns, some different things, and now they're holding the Saints without a touchdown this game. They're holding them to 197 total yards, the lowest in 63 meetings.
We've played them 63 times.
Which is also crazy. That's a lot of times.
It dates all the way back to 1977.
That's amazing.
The Bucs' first win ever was against the Saints.
Oh, look at that
in
fun
New
fact.
Orleans, yes.
Look at that fun fact. I mean, what does this say about this performance when you do have so many meetings and you do it so many times to have these kind of stats of the lowest, the fewest? I mean, that's just got to be music to the defense ears.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of games in this series that the Bucs have won or lost, and I think you made this point where you're facing like Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara, and you're like, we know they're going to get yards.
Yep.
We know they're going to score some points. They're going to get some touchdowns, but no touchdowns. I mean,
Incredible.
Derek Carr may have potentially been a little bit limited because of the shoulder injury, but he was getting rid of the ball extremely quickly, which meant a lot of checkdowns to Alvin Kamara, who caught 13 passes but had 33 yards on those 13 receptions.
That's amazing.
Until that game, no player in NFL history had ever caught at least 13 passes and had less than 70 yards. 70. I'm not talking 50 or 40. It was less than half of the lowest amount that a player has ever had on 13 catches, and that is, to me, it's kind of a gimmicky stat, I admit that, but what it does tell you is that the underneath coverage, the guys were getting to the ball extremely quickly and not letting Alvin Kamara do what he does so well, get the ball out in space and make moves. They were just getting to him immediately. Players like Antoine Winfield, Devin White,
Levante. Even Yaya, I remember dropped him for a loss of 7 on one play.
So there's just a lot of swarming, and I feel like if you've seen that a lot from this defense through the first 4 games, a lot of really swarming to the football.
Yeah, and you brought up Antoine Winfield.
I will always bring up Antoine.
Yeah, we will always want to. We are a Stan account for Antoine Winfield Jr. at this point. I don't know that in my time covering the Bucs, I remember someone filling a stat sheet the way he did in this game. Like, there's been a lot of people that have had a lot of great games. To have such a diverse way of impacting the game, where you're forcing a fumble, recovering a fumble, you're getting a sack, you're getting QB hits, you're tackles for loss. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Pass defense. I knew I was forgetting something.
Right
There's
there.
that one. Yep. I mean, I just feel like this performance was incredible, and also definitely a reminder of why we were like, yeah, let's put him back at safety. He's pretty good at that.
I would point to one series early in the third quarter where it showed what Antoine Winfield is capable of. And you talked about filling up a stat line. I would say the only other guy that I've seen do that in recent years is Levante David. And I think Bucs fans are going to end up loving Antoine Winfield the same way they obviously love Levante David.
Yep.
But this series in the third quarter, on first down, around midfield, he makes a play 6 yards in the backfield, drops Alvin Kamara for a loss of 6. 2 plays later, that pass break you just saw against Chris Olave 3 yards deep in the end zone. Within the span of 3 plays, he made 2 amazing plays like 56 yards away from each other. And so he was obviously close to the line of scrimmage on the first play. He was obviously playing deep, free, middle of the field, free safety on the second play. That's what he could do. You can move him all over the field, and he's making plays. And I've been predicting for several years that he's going to be an All-Pro. I feel like he's off to a really good start towards that goal this year.
I mean, if he continues this, he's gold jacket headed. Him and Tristan Wirfs. That's my claim. That's my claim. That's my hot take. He and Tristan Wirfs, to me, are outside. I mean, we all know that we feel like Mike Evans, Levante David are guys that are, worthy of that. To me, that after them,
that's who you're watching.
That's who I'm watching is Tristan and Antoine. That I just feel like that's the direction that they're heading, and I'm just, And it's so cool that Antoine is the guy that everyone has talked about, the fact that from day one he came in a pro. He knew how to be a pro, and I'm sure a lot of that is thanks to his dad coaching him up all those years and telling him what it takes. But everybody talked about the way he tackled practice and film study, and also how he takes care of his body and his maturity. It was just like I've heard a lot of people refer to him as an old rookie, where he came in and he didn't seem like a rookie. He seemed like he already had been in the league. Yeah, very similar vibes for sure.
But by the way, good segue there. If you watch the Chris Godwin mic'd up segment, there was a point where they were talking about Antoine on the sideline, and they're like, well, he's short, but he's just a good player.
Yeah.
He just knows what he's doing.
And then we'll talk a little bit, and we normally would talk about an upcoming game, but it is the bye week. So tell people a little bit about how the team tries to use this bye week.
Well, they gave the players the full week off. They didn't have to. They could have had a couple of bonus practices early, but they had to give them 4 consecutive days off. They gave them the whole day off, the whole week off, and they'll come back on Monday for a bonus day. What the coaches do, and they're not putting in the normal amount of hours. I mean, they're getting out there early, which they deserve to get a break as well. But they are coming in, and Dave Canales talked about how they wanted to take that week to kind of take a deep dive into the first 4 games and just really go over what has worked and you know, what can we emphasize and what can we hang our hat on and make this offense sort of give it its identity. And so they've been studying film quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think that's where we all talked about how, man, we hated what an early bye week it is. You tend to want it to be late to really get healthy right before crunch time, but man, I'm like, A, we needed to get healthy right now anyways. Yeah. But B, I think with a new offensive coordinator and a new system and a new quarterback and all that, in some ways it is kind of nice early on to, before it's, you know, later in the season, like, hey, let's really sit down and figure out what's working well, what's not. I think in some ways that's kind of a benefit. Now I'm sure come week 12, if we have a bunch of injuries again, we're going to be like, dang it. But
and we have 2 byes.
Yeah, for right now, I think it makes sense. And then, all right, we will close with this creamsicle game. In case you have not seen, has been flexed. That is our next game we have here after the bye week. It was a 1 p.m. Now it is a 4:25. So whether you're coming to the game, watching the game, all of that, just want to make sure everybody knows it got flexed, which I was very excited about.
And why do games get flexed?
Because the teams are doing well.
Right, because they want more of the nation to see this. And that, I mean, right now, Detroit still has another game to play, but right now that's a matchup of 2 first-place teams.
That's going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
That's going to be great. And there's going to be so many cool things that the team is doing for the stadium and the whole in-game experience. I'm just so glad more people will get to see the creamsicle jerseys and the entire experience we have. And I know there is going to be some special merch dropping as well. So everyone cannot get enough of all the creamsicle merch right now, myself included. So make sure you are paying attention over this next week or so and checking out the team store, checking out the Bucs website and socials, because there are going to be some very cool exclusive things dropping that you can only find at shop.buccaneers.com. So
I love those shots of the old sombrero.
It's great. And yes, the old sombrero. I think maybe there could be some swag that has to do with that.
Yeah, a little tease there from Casey Phillips.
We don't know. But all right, we hope all of you are getting outfitted. You're getting ready. Use that bye week to get ready for the creamsicle game when we get back. We'll be back here next week to take more of a look at that matchup, so we'll see you then.